And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Lorelines. Another episode, another week. Last week we tried to hold it in. 6.3 gave us the Alliance raid, and today is our opportunity to discuss it. So, love it or hate it, here we are. Welcome, everybody. I did see in chat there were a few comments about... a comment about this mildly upset there was no frying pan in sight. What is this about Manderville?
Neela is off to the side hiding.
I see that. I'll work on it. Take it away, team.
No, don't see me.
No perception.
Do you like the raid?
I like it a lot. It's got really good mechanics and really good designs for all the different bosses and really, really banger music.
Yeah, I was gonna say great music, love the visuals. It's really nice.
Besides all the jokes about the first boss, right?
Naufika and her Nauficas.
Naufika's Wells?
Her fertile fields.
Listen, I could care less about Naufika. I was just happy to meet Halone.
She certainly lives up to her reputation.
And true to my word, every time I entered, I prayed right before I fought her.
Nice.
That's very cute.
You know, if we are to believe what they said about the gods afterwards in the quest, like, you're part of the reason she's that way.
Yeah, this is actually really important. In the quest line, they mentioned that their form and like their personalities have shifted over the various millennia, because apparently, despite being eternal and not exactly like a primal, they're still somehow attuned to the faith and beliefs of the people. So that was interesting for sure.
That's information that knowledgeable mortals could definitely abuse a little.
Oh yeah.
In a humorous way.
Especially that comment that Halone made about you believe that Naufika and I are rivals. Well, you're free to believe what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still feel like even with that, they probably do have some agency over what they do and believe themselves.
I mean, if we're gonna play Pokemon here, ice beats grass, so
That's right.
Ice beats grass.
I mean, it's snowing here now, so that seems accurate.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where to begin. There's a huge lore dump here. Not everybody caught it, to be honest. I mean, that it just is what it is. A lot of people did not catch some of the stuff in the Alliance raid, just the story and like the exact the narrative that the various characters, non-playable characters,
just downplaying all this stuff that I just dumped into Discord.
They're still being a bit coy with it, and it also depends on if you did any of the Elpis side quests.
I guess. I mean, that's kind of a deeper dig. If you want to go into it, I can start pulling up images. But I just mean like the basic discussion that Derek was having with us even right at the end. I mean, they laid on, I don't know if everyone caught this, but they laid on so thick the notion that the 12 exist by essentially the permission of Hydaelyn. Hydaelyn's gone. And in this patch cycle, they keep talking about, we won't be here forever. This might be the last time. And Derek is suddenly taking charge of our conversations and being very, I don't want to say pushy because it's within anyone's right to have a conversation, but as far as like...
Very forward.
Very
I
forward.
wonder how many times they've said that to people. This is our last time here. We may not show up again.
I think this is the first time. I think we set off some things into motion, and this is their last chance to have a big party before they fade. That's my take.
They're what happens when you kill Hydaelyn. It's pulling a lever.
Speaking of, that last one I posted has something to do with that.
Sure. Let me change scenes so I can start pulling the images up, but by all means, take the discussion away. Maybe, how did some of our viewers enjoy the content?
Yeah, how did you guys enjoy it? So, first and foremost, my initial, the first night, I went ahead and killed the MSQ. I mean, in a nice way. And then I was going to the following night. I was going to do the raid, but I finished it early enough that I'm like, well, I'll jump in and see how it is. It was so bad that night on Primal. The lag was so bad that night. I got to Holone and everyone disconnected. There was a mass disconnection on Primal. I saw people floating in the air fighting. That was the first time I've seen that.
That's wild. Oh, I wanted to say something else about the raids.
Go for it.
I'm totally biased because blue's my favorite color and I like Holone's aesthetic. But the armor you get from it, pretty damn nice.
Yeah, the
gear pieces.
Euphrosyne hypostatic gear is really good. I'm actually wearing it right now on my machinist.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get a body drop.
So far, I have that in the maiming chest, and I've been making new glams with them, and they're very pretty, very shiny.
It's really nice. I mean, it's very much a certain aesthetic, but that's also my aesthetic.
It has a very like starry sky with a little bit of like the Heidelin blue going on. Very appropriate for Menfina's arena.
The following night, I went ahead and did it again, but it was a slog. It was still pretty bad, and I think it was because they broke something apparently during the patch, and they had to do emergency maintenance the following week.
Oh dear.
I got to the Alliance raid a little bit late. I did MSQ within the first couple of days, but I think I waited till the weekend to do the Alliance raid. And by that time, all the lag issues had been fixed. I got a really clean experience of the raid. I see in chat a lot of people struggled because they ran it that first day. I'm sorry for your loss. I didn't die. I had tank privilege, but I went in on Gunbreaker and I just had a solid experience. I have to say I wasn't as like emotionally affected by Euphrosyne as I was with the first Aglaia, and I think part of that is just the score they chose. It didn't have as much of like a celebratory impact or effect, I guess. Where it was like pure joy. I remember Ayumi or someone else in chat had mentioned it was like, how did you enjoy Vocaloid the raid? I don't know if that holds up, but
Fuck yeah, Hatsune Miku.
I think there might have been like a little undertone in this raid of just like we're preparing to leave, so we're kind of giving you a big old send-off kind of thing.
yeah.
We're gonna beat you up and have fun beating each other up, and then talking about it. It almost feels like we're in one long Heidelin trial, almost like we're doing the same thing that Heidelin did with us, which is making sure that we're ready to inherit the world.
It doesn't really matter, but so it is a Greek word, so it would be like Euphrosyne, much like Mnemosyne or Persephone.
Got it.
It's
Thank you.
weird in English having the final E be pronounced.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Trying to remember.
All these Latin.
Oh, I was just gonna say that my raid static actually convinced me to go ahead and go into it after raid when that first weekend. So I actually did get in, and I didn't have any problems. I told him not to tell me anything unless I needed to know it to survive, and the piece of advice I got was look at the card debuffs, which saved my life. So it
Yes,
was enough.
Nymia's cards.
It was
There's
a
gonna be
cool,
plenty of that.
little thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, nothing but Nafka jokes on this episode.
I liked how they incorporated Astrologian with like almost a Gaia time speed kind of way of pairing Althic and Nymea together. It was very inspired.
Yeah, I wasn't specifically expecting someone to show up and be like, "Yo, you're not fighting my sibling alone," but it was really cool.
Oh god. Yeah, that was another thing during my run of the Alliance raid. So a lot of other people were lagging out, and it was, of course, everyone's first time that first night. So they all had died during the Nemea and Althic fight. I was the only one left. And guess what? We hit Enrage. Me being the only one standing, I got ulted. Feels bad.
When I went in, were you with me, Ayumi?
Deleted in chat.
In my run, were you
No.
with me?
No, I was not.
You were not? I thought I invited a bunch. Anyway, I thought I had. Yeah, the
Did you go first night though?
negative. No.
No, I went first night.
Yeah. No, in my run, the only hiccup we had was the other alliance did not move the boss outside of the tether range.
I went the first night, but I didn't have as much connection issues as some of my partners who are on the West Coast who were having difficulties for whatever reason. I think it might even have just been like a data center specific issue, like servers
Maybe.
out around North America.
So we've got a question in chat from AC Gears and Arms, and so were the myths wrong saying they're spouses? They're just brother and sister, or the other thing? I think
They're spouses like Hera and Zeus, probably, like at least in some sense, or like other Greek deities who maybe had a few relations with their family members.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming to
thing.
I'm coming to the feeling
Pantheons are
that
weird.
the pantheon is actually accurate because of the few things that seem not to have changed. It's the relationships. So like maybe their personality or how much armor they wear, or whether Helona is extra aggro this century. Those things seem to change. But
Can't wait to find our Zeus. Oh boy.
but the
Oh,
basic
boy.
relationship seems intact unless I missed something. It seems like the chart was rendered accurately. Anybody have a take on that?
And like I said, I can't wait to find our Zeus and find out he's the lord of everyone. And I put that in a nice way.
Yeah, that's another thing to note from chat. You know, it's mentioned directly that Dalamud, the dog, is created by Faith. So it could just like Nofika's bounty was just as bounteous as in the legends. Maybe they're just reflecting the legends. I mean, 1-for-1 basis. You know, of course, they're that big. That's how you drew her, kind of situation. Same with the
And
dog.
we're
It's
dancing
fueled
around
by
that.
enough prayer.
But
Yeah.
to an extent, though, I still get the feeling that they themselves, as individual people, have some amount of like agency.
There's got to be an essence there. Yeah, I agree. They're not bots.
Well, do you want to
wonder if
bring
they
up
have
the
a
first
soul.
round of pictures just to kind of emphasize that point?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me pull them up now. 1 second while I slide because the transition deafens
It
us
won't
as
be
it
the
moves.
first round because that we have the dialogue from Kryl, but like
I just posted
you
them in
should
order.
see- Yeah.
Hold on. Oh no, it's the broken screen. Here we go. We haven't
We've got a
fixed the
missing nose
chibis.
screen.
The
We
chibis
have a
are
missing nose screen.
missing nose screen.
What, with all the code broken? Get it?
Did you want to just start here?
No, go to that.
Which? The picture?
Picture with Namiya and
And yeah.
in the next. Yep.
Yep. So this is back in Elpis, and I hope you all don't hate us, but there's been this floating thing around Elpis, and there have been several companions and stuff, and like NPCs. Ayumi, why don't you take the floor? But the point is, when we went through Elpis in MSQ, there were some hints that maybe the 12 were just people from there, and it's kind of been a
So there is
community
a
theory for
side
years.
quest. There is a side quest in Elpis to help Myra and this one other person. Name
Carmion?
Carmion, yeah. Apparently he was a time mage, or studying the effects of time. You help both of them, and she, at the end, mentions something very, very similar to what is mentioned at the end of the raid. Go ahead and bring up the next one. This one. Oh, Alkios. Oh, okay, no. Yeah, Alkios, her brother, who was near her at the time. Must you always be so formal? Although he has trouble expressing it, I assure you my brother is absolutely giddy with joy.
And this is 1-for-1, kind of what we just ran into.
Alkios. Myra and Alkios.
Yeah.
Also important to note that they're saying this on the island that you meet Vana, so they most
Yes.
likely know her. And she does mention that she's there with a friend, or at least potentially other people that she knows.
Friends.
Yeah, so she's just with the 12 right now.
Go to the next image, the one that was captured with Namiya.
Yeah, so here it is. It's the same thing. Look.
This is not photoshopped, by the way. This is an actual
This is
screenshot.
This is in. So we have our answer. I mean, there's really no denying it.
I mean, the 12 themselves kind of beat around the idea just a little bit on a coy way. I think that as we've been going along, it's becoming more obvious, and they're realizing that we're realizing.
Yeah. So like Zental just said, we need some tinfoil to this. I don't think we need any tinfoil. I think this is
There's
a
no
literal take.
tinfoil.
It's done.
No,
It's
for that,
cooked. It's
for
done.
that,
It's
it's
cooked.
pretty. Yeah, for that, it's pretty cut and dry. That it's almost certain that the 12 are the people who helped summon Eidolon, and that they formed from them. People like those people we just mentioned. People that you meet in the main side quest of Elpis, the chain, in the middle part of it.
It's in this context that I know there was some discussion on the Lorelines Discord earlier about, maybe the Watcher isn't the secret 13th, but given how literal and how straightforward all of these takes have been, I think we have to trust the narrator unless we are told otherwise. So
Yeah,
I'm feeling like the Watcher is exactly what the story tells us it is.
Yeah, the epigraph mentions that they're like unnamed, and also that they're on the moon.
And we got the
watching.
short story recently.
And we got the short story, yeah.
So we know who they are.
It was a person who was a close friend of Anal. But I'll probably basically made another convocation out of friends and people she could trust who would be willing to follow her plan.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Absolutely a shadow government. We were talking about the math just before the podcast, right? It's 12 demigods, 1 Watcher, and 1 Will of the Star. That is 14.
So go to the next one. It's the one where the wall makes another time paradox.
Fast becoming a pastime of the Warrior of Light.
Yeah. Let's go back and gossip, change the future, or make the future.
So Carmion, who you are on a quest with in Elpis, says, "Tell me, how do you express yourself at these times? You have a choice between with an offering of Nymea lilies or by making a grave or cairn for the deceased." Carmion says, "Nymea lilies? A beautiful name for a flower, but not one I've heard of. I wonder if it was recently registered." Myra, "And you offer these lilies for the fallen? Interesting. We do have a custom of gifting flowers to those we love and admire, so I suppose this is not so different. Perhaps I can prepare some blooms to take the place of the ones you mentioned." We gave Nymea lilies their name!
Yep.
Bootstrap.
Just so many things like that. It really does make the behemoth thing seem kind of quaint.
There's a little bit more in chat here from AC Gears. The strange part is the 12 don't behave like primals.
I'm sorry.
It's true. I mean, we have such a broad idea of what a primal even is now. I mean, we've gone from they're all bots with coding to Elidibus is a primal what to this where their forms and essences are influenced by mortals, but they're still kind of like primals, but also you can't kill them, and there's a big mixy-mashy here.
Kind of gave
sort of
me
becoming a spectrum, maybe.
Yeah, and they also kind of gave me auspice vibes too because of their animal forms and I don't even know if that was intended to be a red herring to drive us off from thinking of what they're really at, but it was just very interesting to see them in animal forms and think, well, that's kind of like Suzaku and company.
I hadn't thought about it, but you bring up a very good point there.
So it's almost like they're at the cross section of many different metaphysical entities. They could be something unique entirely between all of them.
Yeah, or there could be similar laws of nature that form a parallel, even if they're not specifically related to the auspices. The animal form could be, I'm struggling with the words here, but something that fits in both categories in a similar way.
Yeah. If anything, auspices might be maybe approaching in their own way what the 12 already are.
True.
There's just so many lore implications from this raid, and it makes me very excited to see the conclusion. Although I imagine it will also be kind of sad because I'm expecting them all to leave, like Heidelin did at the end. Their duty fulfilled.
Yeah, I think
It's
that's
gonna
very
be
likely.
very emotional.
Yeah, and they're already like, yeah, we're doing this to kind of like, have fun, and they're not really trying to conquer the world. That's all just a joke.
Yeah, they want to play with their children. And it's interesting, they do call us their children. It's not just Heidelin who calls us children.
Yeah.
It's like, it was a whole... I mean, for so long we've known the 12 and we know the myth, but it's interesting that Vinaz's convocation really views all of humanity as their responsibility and their creation.
They helped bring us about as we are in this current age, so yeah. They probably view us the same way.
I've been having a little bit of trouble with that notion. I completely get it, and I understand where they're coming from, but also in sundering existing souls and creating a new status quo, it's not quite the same as children. Do you know what I mean? I'm having trouble putting this into words, but
It's not created as a new thing, or it's not like... Oh, yeah, it is hard to put it into words. I agree.
I'm trying to
It's more
imagine.
like they took and sort of domesticated in a way. You know how animals become more like baby animals.
Yeah.
Not entirely, but they have more characteristics of baby animals, play and that sort of thing when they're domesticated. It's almost similar, very, very tangentially.
Yeah, I'm imagining like you take your neighborhood and you're like, hey, by the way, you're 1/14 of yourself now, but you're my babies. I just don't. It's just a little silly.
Their lifespans were also very much shorter too, and they're like, oh, tiny baby.
Yeah, their reference point is either familiars or ancient children. So they very much probably look at us as like just literally kids and that we don't know any better. We need to be guided. But like less of a like paternalistic sense that we might have gotten from other ancients and more just like we literally created you, you are our kids.
Yeah. Alex in chat has a good point too. Vinod doesn't exactly view mankind as different pre-sundering and after. It's just that her status in relation to them was elevated.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And you know how we had that discussion with Aglaia last time with the gods about appearing before people.
Yes, yeah.
Last image, please. This is small, but it was an interesting thing that popped up to me.
Yeah, it says more than 1,000 years ago, Halone appeared before King Thordan I and bade him lead his people to the Promised Land, to the lands we now call home, from House Fortom, Steward.
But that might be just propaganda.
Could
like
be.
not actually legit. Like she probably didn't do that, I don't think.
Would be interesting if, young King Thordan happens to see through the veils and is like, oh, Haloni, what is your advice? And she's like, go away.
She's
But
like,
nicely.
go murder a dragon.
I think they told him to go live nicely with the dragons, and they were the ones that screwed that up. But I could be wrong.
Yeah,
And Thordan screwed that up.
Especially in the wake of like, Avalonia and them having already been living peacefully with dragons until they fucked
True.
it up.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's interesting
I don't know.
nevertheless.
It was just interesting because this quote didn't really kind of scratch that itch until I finished Aglaia, and then I came back to it and was like, huh. Possibly, possibly not.
I also like to think that in Halone's case, she's a good argument for the more, extreme, hateful and angry elements of the Orthodox Church that were, epitomized by Thornton, that they were in the minority even over a long period of time, and that people like Emmerich or the people even in the Broom were more influencing how Halone became because they were always the majority of the people who believed in her.
That makes sense from a statistical perspective. Usually, you get 80% of people that are very middle of the road, and you have maybe 10% extreme on one side and 10% extreme on the other side. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me.
Definitely has an edge to her, but it's actually kind of like a really interesting take, rather than like her just being like, "Rrr."
Yeah. And I mean, you expect a certain intensity from a deity of war.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. Did anyone get distinctly evolution vibes from Halone's design?
I got Saber
Saber?
from Fate's Day Night, but
Yeah, I mean
that's
it's all
just me
blue
because I'm
dress,
a
blonde
weeb.
hair stuff, so I guess that makes sense.
That
But she was straight up a Valkyrie, so
Yeah.
that makes me think though. I do have one question. I don't think we're ever gonna get the answer to this, but I would want to ask them if I could. Is why is it you're only the deities of Eorzea and not all of Aetheris?
Yeah.
Like
that
why
is
are
a
you
really good
Interesting,
question.
yeah.
why are you only like guiding and protecting a specific place?
It could have to do with how Eorzea is so much more ethereally like plentiful or something. I'm not sure.
I think you're onto something actually, and I mean we've seen the Azim Steppe. I mean Azem, Azema, this whole thing. I mean it's not like there's no presence all over the world, but it's very
True.
clear that Eorzea is
Like a hotbed of it.
it's the
It has a
primary
distinct-
center, and it's their home base. I mean, the fact that Aglaia is actually on Silver Tier kind of answers our question from previous seasons, where
Yeah,
the font of all magic, Silver Tier Lake, Midgard Sormer, all of this stuff does make sense. Their house
I
is
was
the
about
lake.
to bring that up. Look
And we've
where the
got
home is.
Hingashi. Hingashi, they have their own thing. It's like Japan. They believe in Shinto. It's almost Shinto religion. They believe in kami. There's a god for the sea, the god for air, there's a god for wind, there's a god for the sun. It's you pray to whichever will give you the most fortune in that instance.
And some of those instances end up becoming either auspices or primals.
Yep. There are hundreds and hundreds of kami in the real world. Far fewer of them in Final Fantasy, though. But it could be missed. It couldn't be mistaken there. Shinto religion is interesting.
I always kind of like lament that we never got a bigger picture of like if they had any sort of sense of religion, what would it look like in terms of what the ancients might have believed in that department, and what would have inspired them to make what they did with Zodiac and Hydaelyn? Or was that our fault too?
Listen,
mean-
we screw a lot of things up. We have a terrible memory too.
Everybody seems to have terrible memory.
No, ours is worst of all. You ask us to remember Titan, we remember a go-kart.
I mean, I clearly remember the go-kart from level 30, whatever.
I like to think of it as
That's what ran me off, right?
unnecessary flourishes, some like creative liberties.
Landslides. Go-kart. Huh.
It looks like I didn't take a screenshot, but I was trying to pull up just at the very beginning of the Alliance raid. I really enjoyed the scene where the land is reshaped, and I forget the quote, but it's by my authority, blah, 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 blah. And I really liked the take that the ability to reshape the land was based on an authority and not a power. I know that's localization, probably, but it was just, I like seeing stuff like that,
They're
It's like-
definitely leaning into what they think we expect them to be.
Like my task and role and responsibility is to reshape the land. Therefore, we're using the word authority rather than power, which has a more self-oriented. It's more self-centered of a word. Power is
The passage
Death touch.
and the passage of time, which is what Althic represents, certainly does reshape the land.
I do have this quote here, though, Althic saying, "Then you would do well to hold in your minds that which harbors information." What are you saying, dude?
I'm very
I think he's saying
interested.
stop being so forgetful.
I'm very interested to see what
I
Thaliak
rest
is
my
going to be
case.
like. Like Thaliak will probably be like that too.
I like that we have a Tombstone of Poetics as our book.
We sighed.
Bring
I
out the
loved
cell
it.
phones.
Book, map, tombstone.
There's no escaping that Allegan hell.
And it's funny because we don't think it holds information. We think it's a form of currency.
I mean, what do you
Even
think
though-
That's why
Rowena's
they're in
doing with
demand.
them? That's why
It's
they're
'cause they hold information.
yeah
but it is
thousands
free.
and thousands of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like poetics in particular just never go out of style. People are just they love their Allegan poetry.
I was gonna say tomestones of poetics, more like they're probably like trashy romance novels from the times of Alec. That's why there's
You
so
know,
many of
you're
them.
probably
and
not
why they love
wrong.
'em.
You're not wrong.
It went
The
away.
trashier, the better.
That's right.
Rowena just sells them as poetry, so they'll be like more acceptable.
Picture went away.
That's like she rebrands it to make it sound so fancy.
I'm aware, Yumi. Did you want to show it some more? Are there more pics you want to share?
I believe we still have the cryo dialogue at the end.
Ah, yes. Sorry about that. Hold on a sec.
Which actually was funny because it reminds me of when Emmett Selk went over the instructors in Elpis and what they do in the convocation.
This is a pretty big text wall. But is this the one you were referring to where it mentions what all the gods
it's
are
three
for?
parts. There's a lot of it.
Yeah. So in this part, she's reading from the inscription or the monument, I guess.
Yes, the very end. Would you like to go over it, or who would like to?
As beings who endure by the will of the star, Heidelin, we are susceptible to the influence of hopes and prayers. Thus do we commit our yokes, duties or responsibilities herein, lest we stray from our purpose. He who is named Byregot shall preside over construction, his duty to fortify the works of men and encourage them to build. He who is named Relger shall preside over destruction, his duty to galvanize the star's beating heart and facilitate mankind's regeneration. She who is named Azema shall preside over the sun, her duty to nurture its life-giving light and illuminate the truth for all to see. He who is named Naldthal shall preside over the subterrane, his duty to gleam the riches hidden in the darkest depths and in men themselves. She who is named Nofaka shall preside over fertility, her duty to fill the land with life and prepare a path of peace and plenty. He who is named Althik shall preside over space and time, his duty to endow the star with material vigor that mankind's march may never cease. She who is named Halone shall preside over the glaciers, her duty to hold the melting ice at bay and imbue men with constancy and tranquility. She who is named Menfina shall preside over the moon, her duty to perpetuate the turning of night and day and foster love in the hearts of all. He who is named Thaliak shall preside over the rivers, his duty to quench the thirst of men and water their minds with wisdom. She who is named Nymea shall preside over the stars, her duty to preserve the celestial fabric of the seasons and weave the thread of men's lives. She who is named Limlane shall preside over the seas, her duty to administer the tides and inspire men to come together as one and seek new horizons. He who is named Ashan shall preside over the mountains, his duty to sustain the breath of the firmament, and in wandering, share in men's solitude. Hi, Derek. He who is unnamed shall watch unflinching, his duty to stand guard over his charge, always and unto the end. There the epigraph concludes. We've been given a lot to ponder. Yeah, and that's very similar to the you've spun quite a tale. One of the few times we've had.
How they're all... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say one of the very few times we've had Y'shtola's voice waver was during that scene in Shadowbringers.
Yeah. It's interesting that they each have a thing pertaining to the natural world and a thing pertaining to man, too.
And then we have the 13th. which everyone is wildly speculating to be the Watcher.
Including the characters in the story.
Yeah, our friend on the moon, who is unnamed, just the Watcher.
Oh, what do you think it is? Does everyone think it is?
I think it is.
It certainly fits with him. They could make it fit with somebody else if they so chose. It would feel a little deceptive, but who knows? It's with current evidence, I would say Watcher, with the asterisk of they could do something else if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
In doing so, they would essentially tie this raid into MSQ, making this raid MSQ mandatory almost in the future.
It seems like the way they're going, although I think it's totally fair for the devs to just say, if you miss it, you miss it. But a lot of this content is so interwoven. We've been seeing this ever since, Shadowbringers made Crystal Tower mandatory, where it's just, you miss so much by not having experienced it that you might not get what's going on. Although maybe, had they not made it mandatory, everyone wouldn't have immediately thought that it was Grahatia. So I don't know. It's their call, and either way, it's been a fun experience. I do think they're I don't know if we're just too much in the thick of paying attention to story, but I do feel like a lot of it is very straightforward, and there's not a whole lot to sort of theory craft around right now. It's just kind of their it's a lot of exposition, and straight takes. How do you all feel?
I think that this raid gave us some to think about, especially at the end with that whole clarifying what's the 12 stand for and what they are. I think that speculation has grown a little bit just because we got that quote from Namiya and that quote from Myra. I think that there will be more speculation because of the Watcher and what we will see in the third raid, because we've still got 4 left. 4 gods left.
That actually reminds me of a question that I think you're a good person to ask, Ayumi. You know how the Alliance raids in Shadowbringers, the near ones, they had that massive epilogue where you're collecting data logs after the raids are completed.
Oh God, yeah.
Well,
We might get that.
I think we might, because they have they're
We did go
leaving
to the
us
stones after the epilogue of this story too.
Yeah, we sure did. The reason I ask is because it's pretty clear from the dialogue that we experience in this patch that the gods they're having us sate their desire, and then I feel like they have a task for us when it's all done. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're progressing whatever that task is after the third raid is completed.
See, in Nier's case, it was more or less a kind of a throwback, kind of like an Easter egg, really. There was a lot of Easter eggs in that raid. I could sit down and make an entire Loreline's episode of counting them out. And I know that Cobb wants me to do one, but I need assistance. So in the case of the raid here and now, I would say if we had an epilogue quest, it would be more tied into the lore of the 12 and the 12 Wonders, going back to Elpis, because we seem to do that a lot in this expansion. We like to travel back to the past, so I think if we are going to explore more about the 12 and their myths, then I think we're going to clarify just how they became the 12 from working at the 12 Wonders.
Now, hold on. You mentioned the 12 Wonders, and that made something spark in my brain.
Yeah.
The 12 Wonders is the portion of Elpis that controls the weather effects, things like humidity, temperature, probably even density of air, because they're so high up. It would be very thin atmosphere, yet that's not what we experience.
Nope.
Which makes me think of these 12 shall preside over, this natural phenomenon. Now
That's
it's
why I was
starting to connect up. I have been skeptical in the past
Yep.
about the potential connection there, but now it's starting to make sense to me.
That's why I said, like, I think we're going after the raid and everything, after the epilogue. I think we're going to get exposition after what the monument has told us. I think we're just going to get that clarified for us.
I'm also wondering how the last raid is going to fall down, since we have already fought Nemi, and I don't know if we're going to do so again. What do you think?
I doubt it.
So we have like 3 and then mystery battle.
Yeah.
Well, we have the 3 and then the 4th being
You think
the
we'll fight this
supposed, yeah,
watching unflinching fellow?
watching unflinching fellow, yeah.
Would be interesting, especially with what I observed with.
Unless it's like a perfect Alexander fight where they all combine into one.
It would that would be humorous.
Yeah.
but also cool.
Wait, all of us.
We would uninstall. Or would we?
It would be interesting if they gave the Watcher a form other than this hood. It's interesting to me because I observed in one of the Golbez cutscenes from, I believe, the previous patch. I think it was from 6.2. There's this. It's not clear if it's a flashback or a flash forward. But
Yes,
he's
yes.
about to attack the Watcher, and you can tell because of the stars on the robe. And I'm like, now, which one? Why this guy is so central to more than one, potentially central to more than one, line of side content story. Interesting, anyway.
And we do see in 6.3 that when the fog lifts from the moon, there is no facility where a clone of a Watcher could sit. It's just gone, right? There's no. You can see the
Or at
where
least
the,
not that we could see, anyway.
Well, you can see kind of a spot where there's a plane where it looks like they
created
leveled.
after the Sundering, yes.
Yeah, so it looks like there might only be one Watcher, in which case you're seeing.
Why is there
He,
that?
as I said, I think he's going to the source.
Many
I
questions.
haven't gotten through MSQ, so I can't actually speak to that though.
Well,
That's fine.
I'm going to withhold some of my comments because there's the
I can
bit
just
at
pull
the
my
end of
headphones out.
6.3. There's a bit at the end of 6.3 that will have more questions than for you.
I see.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I have been busy, and I also injured myself, making it harder to play games.
Oh, because.
I'm sitting here with a splint on my thumb, and the splint is too heavy for the joint injury, so I have a rubber band to my finger.
No.
It works.
MacGyvering.
Pretty much.
So Tetsu says they think that the Watcher is modeled after Fusoya. I don't see it. Fusoya is the Lunarian who guides towards the end of Final Fantasy IV. Personality is very different, and the presentation is very different. It could be.
If he takes off the robe and a massive beard spills
Yeah, it's just a
out,
beard, then
he's
maybe.
bald.
I think
Yeah.
they're probably distinct.
Yeah, and also as far as the Watcher being a raid encounter, doesn't seem like much of a fighter type to me. So I think they've got a twist in here for us. I don't know what it is. I have no idea.
Yeah, they're gonna pull something out of their
I'm sure
hat.
they're gonna try
I
and
genuinely have
surprise
no idea, but I think there's a twist.
Plot twist, it's the monkey.
Oh no.
Oh, jeez.
The Oppo grows in size, and you just have to fight it.
Like that fairy that Gaia kept referring to in the Eden raids turned out to be Mitron.
I know it's a topic shift, but I still think that was too short of a time to introduce and kill an Ascian.
I would have loved to sit there at the end of the last ones and be like, oh my god, it's an Ascian. Oh god, what do we do? Oh, heck. Oh, dang.
Oh, jeez, oh man.
Oh gosh.
Oh heck, oh dang, oh jeez, oh man.
Exactly. Imagine sweating that for like 6 months.
Would have been great. But I still really enjoyed that series.
I'm still wondering if we're ever going to get the lore for the rest of them, or if they're just going to be shunted off into the closet.
Yeah, I mean,
Especially if we're now getting like lore on their counterparts that Vana jimmied together.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I hesitate because there was some 6.3 stuff that Neela hasn't seen yet, so I don't want to, but I think they've closed off at least one loop in terms of the Ascian stuff.
And what would that be?
If you want, I can just recuse myself for a moment so you can discuss it.
Well, What did you take to the idea before these patches that Golbez might be an Ascian, or did you discount that out of hand?
I wasn't very keen on that one. I think it's more likely to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Very
he-
good. Then it's safe. What I'll say is that he mentions that the Ascians had told them something, and the fact that he's framing them as Ascian means that that has been completely shut off. They will not be, I don't think. When you use a term like their official outside title, it's an out group. It's not an in group. So he's just a denizen of the 13th, the end, and so that means they still haven't dealt with Pastorat at all. So, yeah, I mean, there's some lore here that we just haven't gotten much of, and all the AR Ascians have not been found.
I'm still wondering about that, what he talks about there, and I'm like, did he get that from Igiorum, or like what? Who told him? Like,
It could have been any of them. Probably.
I
Ego.
still feel like he's giving me Pastorat vibes, but I'm also like starting to think, maybe.
I mean, he could be role playing for the benefit
Something
of all the
else
other Void
entirely. He's more than he appears, is all I'll say. Like how he's able to do what he's done, essentially.
Full agree.
Going back to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
So, the center monument, its architecture, did anyone get Amarat vibes from it? The twisting
Absolutely.
spires.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the things that are connected to or descended from that kind of thing more directly seem to have that kind of architecture in new ways. Like
And
how
that's why-
the Loperate stuff had that going on.
And that's why I keep bringing back my points to the whole, we're going to go back to Elpis, and we're going to tie back the 12 to when they worked and how they became who they did. Go ahead, Neil.
Oh, I was just gonna say it strikes me as like, you know how architecture over eons will sort of migrate, and you'll have a column, and that's the sort of thing, but they'll have different things at the top or different. It seems like it's like Amrod inspired or ancient inspired, but it's a new sort of style.
It's
in
an
its own way.
evolution. Yeah.
Yes, that's a good way of
I
putting it.
even get the sense that Charlayan in its own way is a little bit of an evolution.
To a degree, yes, absolutely, yeah. It would be very interesting to tie it back. And we don't necessarily have to travel back there, perhaps to tie it to Elpis. It could be like you have a flashback and you remember this and you remember that, and it's like, oh, it all makes sense now. Or they just tell you a bedtime story. I'm not sure.
That's what I mean.
Curious to see how they'll do this closure thing.
That's what I mean, though, Zent. Like, we're going to end the raid on next tier. And after the epilogue, we're probably going to be tasked with going back in some fashion and just meeting the people, the researchers, before they became the 12.
Something. I mean, it's got to be
We've already
something,
been
right?
given that hint of Myra and the other one. So, I mean, that's just a straight up one-to-one thing, but I'm sure we'll meet the rest of them.
Yeah. I mean, the pictures you supplied, we have the names of 3 of the 12 before they became demigods. Yeah. We've got them. I mean, they're on lock. I'm going to transition back to the other scene really quick.
And you're free to also run around Elpis and just kind of look around and talk to NPCs and kind of form your own theories on who is who. Heck, they may not even be one of the NPCs already we find in Elpis. It could be someone completely new.
I get the feeling that like some of them are from Elpis, but then others may have been from other places, and we may not know them all entirely.
Remember, they met up at Anamnesis to consult and talk to Vana and summon Heidelin.
Indeed.
So wherever they started from, they ended up there eventually.
Yes.
We know the Watcher worked at Anamnesis and Ida, right? Wasn't that in the short story
believe that was the
specifically?
case, yeah. Yeah, that was what the short story had said.
Yeah, so they're not all from Elpis probably, but I mean the 12 wonders being there is certainly a heavy hint that I mean all
They
all
were
the
her
demigods
followers.
could be right there. I mean, we'll see.
And I mean, depending on how much Fanal actually told them, or how much they might have inferred from meeting us, those individuals who did, like, they might have gotten the idea for the 12 just from that. I wouldn't be surprised if during our long conversation with Fanal we mentioned stuff like that.
It's also possible that from what we told Veynan, the world getting pretty messed up during things like the Sundering, the rejoinings, that she was like, we're gonna need some way to like protect and keep the world safe. Hey, the 12 Wonders is a great inspiration for this. We can take from that concept of having astral and umbral of each element, you know.
My question is still going to be, though, that, like, why are they so determined to focus so much on the source and specifically Eorzea in that case? Even with it being etherically dense, if they want to protect everything they've created.
Remember, we enter the Omphalos above Silver Tier, or
Yeah.
at Silver Tier. So, again, it's the focus on the lake that's the thing.
I'm
Guard
just
Summer is protecting the lake. Omphalos is above Silver Tier. The Crystal Tower is at Silver Tier. Something below Silver Tier is mentioned.
It all leads back to the lake.
And not to mention that the source itself, the reflection of the source, is probably much like Zodiark in that when we killed Zodiark's source fragment, the ones in the other shards dissipated.
in other words, they call it the source for a very
You
very
kill the
specific
heart.
reason.
It's interesting because I theorized this all the way back like in 5.0, 5.1 that if there was ever a flood on the source that all the shards would be lost. And it does kind of seem like the Zodiark thing very much supports that.
I agree with
There
you.
was some other example of it too, and I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, when we defeated Anima and all of the other towers disappeared because
Yep.
they were its extensions as well.
Absolutely.
They themed it very nicely and continued the theme. And I have a feeling the source is the same rule set.
As above, so below.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of which, we have a comment in chat from Sukio Spelldust. Mr. Happy and Pyromancer seem to think that Pandemonium is linked to the 12. I think there's something to that, but I don't know if it's the kind of thread that they thought, because I haven't heard them speak on it. The way I'm viewing it is more like a technological linkage, where Aglaia is the Phantom Realm. It is a totally separate pocket dimension that crosses into reality, and in the Pandemonium quests and even in Elpis when we were there in MSQ, all of these pocket dimensions were firmly something that the ancients could create and even cut off. So, you know, it's a drift. I don't know if they're linked in another way. What do you all think?
I think so too.
That's kind of where I landed on it.
I feel a little bit wrong for not knowing what they talked about, but Sukio, do you want to elaborate? In the meantime, what do you all make of this? Is still related to Silver Tier, but kind of we know that Solus was involved with Emmett Selk was involved with Alag, and we know that he was obviously the Emperor who ordered the attack on Silver Tier. I find it interesting that
it was more conquest on Gaius's part, that he didn't order.
I'm talking about the Agrius attack.
They used the Agrius attack. They didn't. It was Gaius who was doing his conquest of Eorzea, and he brought the Agrius along. The Agrius was the flagship. They used the Agrius at Silver Tier, but made Guard Sarmer lay in wait and attacked him there.
Didn't that happen during Nail's tenure?
It happens way before. I don't have this all on speed dial. I'm so sorry.
I feel like that if Solus had any connection to that, it's tangential to what they were specifically doing as commanders on the ground, Nail and Gaius, not what he himself was like, yes, you must attack this place specifically.
Yeah.
And this is pre 1.0. This is in the cutscene.
He more generally wanted them to just complete Aldenard as part of their conquest.
Well, because he mentions it in A Realm Reborn. He goes back to that scene. He goes back to and explains that the Agrius was brought to Silvertear and attacked by Midgard Sormern's host of wyverns and his host of dragons.
Called his children or whatever, yeah.
Yep. And that's where the cost was too high a price, if I'm trying to remember the cutscene correctly. So they had to turn back. Silvertear was their point of defeat.
Their Waterloo.
But it would be I think I spoke of this the other day. It would be crazy if guys did take Silvertear, because that is an extremely valuable junction to nearly 3 city-states for conquering. That's an entry to Ishgard, that's an entry to the Shroud, and that's an entry very close to Thanalan.
I guess I have trouble thinking that there was given what we know about the Emperor as a character, right? Like, very meticulous planner, very good at manipulating from the sides, giving hints, dropping ideas. I just find it hard to imagine that with the confluence being in Cartano and the Silvertear thing going on and the Crystal Tower being right there, this is all just like, yeah, this is where we built it, no reason.
Well, I think the Crystal Tower didn't appear until afterwards. Correct me if I'm wrong, but still, I mean, that doesn't mean an Ascian wouldn't know it was there. That said, it was the him being an Ascian was a thing that went back and added later. So it makes it really hard to tell like how much was, oh yes, this was definitely planned, or oh yes, when we looked back, we had decided that this was the case, and oh, that's just how it happened to fall down.
The Crystal Tower appeared after the 7th Calamity. And I'm pretty sure that the attack occurred before that.
Yeah, the attack was something like 10 years either before that or 10 years before present, and the Calamity was 5 years before present, quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, I could pull up the chronology in the book here, but I guess, I mean, yes, it appeared, but we know that the Ascian, Emet-Selch himself, was present during Alag when it was built. So it's not like the character off screen didn't know about this stuff.
He was also a little bit like, I imagine he was pretty mentally checked out to a degree at the later stages of his life as Solus. So there's like an element of like, yeah, he's trying to do the rejoinings, but there's also like, I have to deal with idiots all day. I'd really rather be napping.
I just want to take
what you want to do.
Yeah, poor old guy.
Not to mention being at the whims of that body, which like he didn't mean to fall asleep in that short story.
So if you're an ancient and you ever have trouble sleeping, just hop into a host body and make sure it's old.
It's interesting that the Crystal Tower was built, but fell to ruin during the fourth Umbral Calamity, then was unearthed during the 7th Umbral Calamity. So it was brought down, then brought back up.
Yeah, that's right. It was completely submerged in the massive earthquake.
Yes.
It's gone. It's invisible.
Yeah. So
which kind of makes more sense why the people, the tribes that lived there in the Gigas, I think they were,
Yeah,
lived there in that area, would kind of worship it, because like, hello, sudden massive tower twice the size of Burj Khalifa appears, and they're just like, yeah, that seems pretty deific.
If we climb it, we can go to heaven. And they're actually not wrong. If you think about it from like the Omphales.
I think we'll get some exposition with the new Deep Dungeon and their Alag lore that they're going to drop. Because what is Dalamud beneath the earth? Why is there Allagan technology beneath the earth?
I'm curious to find out.
I'm excited.
Because we were told that there is a great font of power beneath the Circus Tower. The only part that we can generally attribute to that would be on the first, when we go into the basement and find a whole bunch of technology and shit that Sid left behind. Including a big open green area of something that makes doubles of us.
It has like cracks in the
It's
walls.
called the underworld. It's funny. It's called the
Yeah.
underworld.
Funny indeed.
Yeah. It's almost like when we go into the Adioscope and we're in the live stream.
Yep.
Which was our version of the underworld.
So now we're on the source, and now we get to go into the basement. So let's find out what is on the source instead of the first. If there really is an underworld, or if there is just a bunch of Allegan tech, and why it's there, what's the point of it?
This makes it good that Grahati is involved in these quests now as well, because that means that we need to go back in there.
He's our star.
So I think
He'll be with us for that.
I'm sorry, I just have to address something in chat. Just in case you are not exaggerating, Zental, 30 kilometers tall is insane. There's no way Crystal Tower is 30 kilometers tall. But it is quite tall, and it's hard to believe that it was buried in an earthquake, I must admit. It's almost like it got pushed up, not merely,
Like,
That was my
you know what I mean?
when you
assumption
get
as
to
well.
that tall, you better be like a orbital elevator or something of that nature, or you're gonna fall over.
Oh god, if it's orbital elevators, don't get me excited. That makes me think of mechas. But anyways, back to our subject at hand. So yeah, what we know about the Omphalos, it's sitting over Silver Tier. Silver Tier is special because of Eorzea. The Omphalos has the 12 in it. The 12 specifically say that Eorzea is theirs to govern and watch over. Is there any other thoughts on this from you guys?
Looking forward to more. Want to know more?
Same. I mean, I find it, now that we know that the 12 are real, and this is news. I mean, we forget because it's been out for a few months, but like we didn't really know, right? Until this expansion. And so unsundered as he was, I just don't think Heidelin needing Midgard Swarmer? I don't know. Wanting maybe around, but as a guardian, I don't, he gets taken out by an airship. It's a big airship.
He's also pretty old.
It's pretty old. I'm having trouble figuring this
Midgard's-
out. He's been around a while, and he's been on the source a long time.
Midgard Sormer came to Aetheres in a fit of panic because of Omega chasing him. He held his clutch of eggs. He had to find somewhere to get sanctuary. Heidelin granted him sanctuary in return for guarding Silvertear.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's more like, okay, you can stay, but you're going to do something for us.
Yeah,
rather than
it's
like
an equivalent exchange. And once Gaius and his army flew to Silvertear, essentially Heidelin and Midgardsormr were like, okay, well, Silvertear's in danger from this. We need to stop it here before they unearth something. And so that's why Midgardsormr took to the skies and brought down the Agrius and stopped Gaius's advance and caused him to retreat.
Would have been pretty funny if their assaulting or doing whatever to Silvertear would have messed up the Omphalos and all of that jazz and caused problems for the 12. And they're like, oh crap, oh geez, oh golly.
It's funny to think about because, like, what if Midgardsormr was not there? What would Heidelin do?
I feel
Would
like
the
the
12
12
intervene?
themselves would have had to intervene, which would have been very weird. Interesting, but very odd.
maybe nothing would have happened because it's a phased reality.
Perhaps.
Hmm.
Yeah, in which case he could have been threatening some other, like, the font of magic itself or some other entity, that sort of thing. If the 12 are containing something, maybe that's the issue or danger.
We still have no exposition on what's below it. So I welcome anything that goes, any information that goes beneath Silvertear, whether it's below the Crystal Tower, whether it's above Silvertear Lake. We need to see what's below, what What is guarded by Midgardsormr? What is so important to that location in Eorzea?
Indeed. I'm wondering that too. Yeah, I really would love to know.
This was mentioned all the way back in Realm Reborn, and it hasn't been downplayed at all. It's always been, this is the location of a great magic or a great importance.
Yeah, still hoping we get some payoff from that. This is the perfect like point in the story to sort of have that come full circle, I think.
I think you're onto something, both of you, all of you. I think they're playing right now, and then they want us to do something, and maybe we get to visit, or maybe we get to resolve some prior problem that's below. I don't know. I'm just trying to vibe on it, but there's got to be some reveal coming. There's got to be a big reveal.
The gods aren't like killable in the same way as a primal. Makes me think of the way, not exactly, but a little bit of the way the Void Sent have to go to great lengths to actually not reconstitute and come back. It makes me think that maybe there's this epigraph, sort of implying that there's like a core or kernel or something. Maybe that's what they regenerate around. I don't know. It's interesting.
And they mentioned the stones are eternal as well. They don't use any other word. These stones cannot be destroyed, based on the phrasing of the story. So they are created after the Sundering. They didn't want to lose their essences, and yet they are. They change, but they never will go away. Kind of situation.
The more the 12 change, the more they stay the same. For real though, like there's a core that doesn't go anywhere, and it's probably more superficial stuff that's changing.
Real quick though, do you want to go over the cutscene in ARR where Louis Soir sends us back in time, and the sigil where you froze it at just the right time?
I don't remember this.
The symbol of Althic?
Oh, you're talking about the
like
actual intro movie.
Intro video.
Yes.
Yeah, I can show it for sure. There was some discussion on the server earlier about what Louis Soir was doing, and in the video that you watch during Realm Reborn, the intro movie, you can stop the frame when he's doing the time spell that sends us forward, and it is the sigil of Althic. So
Yes.
He's using Althic magic, but also this expansion's Alliance Raid series says repeatedly at the beginning, nah, that ain't us. So
maybe he was doing what Gaius inferred, which was he was doing something different than the 12 we're doing with now. He was essentially creating an almost primal version of them for the purposes of
Live
this
chat.
particular thing.
Yeah, I'm following a similar line core. That maybe he sort of is creating a primal version of them, and then this whatever, these stones prevent it from actually causing a permanent change to them or whatever. I don't know.
He has no like direct knowledge that we know of the 12 that we're interacting with now. So I have every reason to believe what they're saying, which is we had nothing to do with that.
yeah, but it's also interesting, right? Because if that's true, then how does mankind's faith, which is only ours, belongs to us, change them at all?
I feel like there's got to be a sort of an in-between for that. Like, oh, I didn't do that, but he did borrow my powers,
Yeah, I could take it. I could dig it.
Prayed really hard, and I was like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. But that's not me. That was all him.
It wasn't me.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, he yoinked my spell for a minute.
Like he did a copy. He creates a copy of Althic and says, do the thing, and then that dissipates. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just guessing here.
I'll pull it up here. 1 second.
It is a cool moment in the intro video.
There it is. It's actually easy to miss because it's spinning, I think. And but if
it just appears for a second too.
If you pull up the chart of the god's sigils, or even have played 6.3, you'll see that it's the same. And then
Screw you, Zen.
Louis Sua's staff has the mark of Thaliak on it. And I mentioned this in the Discord as well last week, but in case anyone needs a review, this was the MacGuffin from A Realm Reborn that Nabrielius came specifically to the Rising Stones to take because we had no idea what was in our hands. And then at the end of Heaven's Ward, Papalimo uses it to sacrifice his ether and imprison Shinryu. So, I mean, I can't say much more, but it seems like Louis Sua had a hell of a kit. You know?
Very knowledgeable. Man.
Staff of Thaliak uses time magic. I mean, with the help of fervent prayer from the Circle of Knowing, but nevertheless, I mean...
He used a time skip instead of a time jump.
Go ahead. Yeah, and then, of course, turning himself into a primal.
Yeah. By the way, I'm Phoenix now. Like, what is going on?
I don't know if he intended to do that.
He didn't intend.
It's
It was the hopes of the departed that was still ambient ether. And I don't know if he specifically meant to become Phoenix, but he definitely wielded primal power.
And there was just no way to wield that much power as a mortal being, more or less. That was the impression I had gotten anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we get from, I mean, everything from Void Sent to Sin Eaters to Primals anyway, where it's more like once you absorb a quality or a it's almost like you embody something, and that something is like writ into the laws of nature. Like you just are a succubus, or you are, you know, whatever Tesseline became. You see what I mean?
Oh yeah, and it seems like that's the very reason that the 12 created these touchstones, so to speak, so that they would never lose this core part of them, so it would only drift so far.
Right. Yeah. It's an anchor.
Yeah, I like touchstone. I'm gonna remember that.
Definitely use it.
I was actually shocked when you actually brought up Baltic Sigil. I didn't realize it.
I forget who initially brought that up. We could check the chat logs, but thank you. It was definitely not me who brought it up initially.
I wonder how long ago they had this all planned out and how much is just them going back and like trying to support what they've done since.
It's so hard to know, isn't it, Sarah?
It's so hard to tell. Because some of this is like a decade old plus.
Yeah. So the whole decade old thing, it just has me. I used to think, oh my gosh, this was written so long ago. It's so awesome. And then after Endwalker, it's like they wrote it, but now they're retconning a lot of things because I went from Shadowbringers to Endwalker, and I'm seeing a lot of contradictions.
I think it's like what can we use? What can we use versus what must we change? You know.
Yes.
That's the discussion at the table. Like, hey, we did this thing. Could we incorporate that in the next 2 expansions somehow? And they had this discussion.
And they bring things from 1.0 back up front, and it's great and it's awesome. Then they bring another thing from 1.0, and they maybe tweak it just enough so that the previous stuff they brought from 1.0 doesn't make sense anymore. Or, like a butterfly effect, like I told chat, you change one thing, one small thing, and it unravels something big later.
I missed this in chat, but Alex said, Louis Sua is doing what the plot demands. He is the plotmancer.
Kind of like the hardest of Beacon that way.
Mm-hmm.
White stone black.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to see what they have for us. I hope that they don't pull too many punches. I hope the story has a meaningful exchange of ideas and resolutions. And I don't know.
Especially
I guess we'll see.
Derek's dialogue.
Yeah, Derek. I actually do have those screenshots. I wonder if I could pull them up.
His dialogue just became more and more suspect as he went along afterwards. Like, oh, things are coming to an end. I don't know if I'll ever see you. Of course, the biggest bait would be for the devs to reveal that he is not Ashan.
That would be insane. It would be wild. He's like, I'm actually Ashan's twin brother. No, I'm kidding.
I'm the monkey. The monkey is Ashan.
I'm just his handler. Hi! His pet human.
I've got some screenshots here now, so
He's got a square on his forehead.
he does. That's an interesting square. It's all over my computer. Okay, we'll figure it out later. Yeah, so he's like, I hesitate to say it this way, but he's super emo, and he's way more used the right word earlier. I said pushy, and you said forward, and the right word is forward. Like, he's very much. It seems like he's running out of time to say things, and is just changing his the persona we see just to make sure that he's speaking up. So this is Derek speaking about his journeys. For the longest time, I've journeyed alone, not involving myself in the affairs of others, but I've enjoyed our time together. You've undertaken the investigation with all earnestness, and it has been a pleasure to be a part of it. He's saying goodbye. I mean, when I imagine the moment we must part ways, I can't help be saddened, and it surprises me that I feel that way.
It lines up with what the gods told us after Aglaia, just that they don't intervene, they walk alongside mankind, but don't cross paths.
Here it is again. He walks out, and we were asked to follow him, and he's sitting by a tree looking up at the sky in the direction of Aglaia, the Phantom Realm. He says, when our work is finished, we must go our separate ways. And he expresses some sadness. I didn't get that screenshot, but yeah, yet that sadness is part of the joy I've derived from our companionship, so I will accept it when the time comes and strive with you to the last. I mean, ook? Like, this is, yes, exactly. Exactly, baby Oppo. Ook? Why are you sad?
Oh, right. He was an NPC in 1.0. Bring up what was linked in chat.
Absolutely.
He was a character, an NPC in 1.0.
That I hadn't realized.
Plot thickens.
Thanks, Alex.
While I wouldn't be surprised if they just reused a name, we haven't really seen that much in Final Fantasy XIV, so I think you're correct. I think this is the same Derek. Looks very different, though. Looks very different, but...
Yeah.
But I
Grew
can't
his
think
hair
of any... Grew his hair out. Changed outfits.
Went through a calamity.
You know.
Teen years.
Alternately, he's doing the Asian thing and using this poor Derek's form to disguise his true self.
But why would
Not
an
fair.
Asian work for
No,
the
no.
people who are opposed to them? the most directly. Yeah, I know you're just joking, but
Christmas money.
you got to state it because there's going to be people who think, well, maybe you're onto something, and I'm like, no, I don't think that's likely.
It'd be using
Very
the
surprised.
tactics of the enemy in this case.
Oh yeah, Tetsu. We know. We saw that as soon as he was introduced in the Aglaia raid.
Yeah, yeah. They're really making it very clear, I think, what's going on with the Wanderer here. But anyway, we're about at time. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss before we close out for the day? I wanted to end on a more celebratory note, but I have got mixed feelings about Euphrosyne, to be honest.
It just leaves us with more questions, and I'm just excited to see what comes of it in the future.
Yes.
You know,
The
it's the
last
middle.
raid.
It's the middle movie. You know what I mean? And we won't know how it resolves until we get more, which is months away. So I guess enjoy it. Get your loot grind on. This is the part of a patch cycle where if you want to touch Savage and haven't had an opportunity, this is that catch-up patch because we have the Alliance raid, the -5 almost best in slot gear. So, if you need gear and you want to go do some pandemonium, I would recommend getting to it.
It also gives you another venue for getting the tome gear upgrade items.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep. So this is that catch-up patch. Definitely get to it. Oh, my personal recommendation for all of you treasure hunters out there, there is a new minion that's been named
New
minion.
minion, plural, 2 minions.
Yeah, fair. But I'm speaking about the specific one.
Mhm.
It's a Hades minion, and it.
I have it already. It's delightful.
A member of my free company looted it last night in treasure hunting.
I haven't seen it, and I've done like 40 plus of those
Well,
damn things.
we post what hypothetical gill winnings are to promote the event, and this one was selling for 17 million on Excalibur last night.
I have seen people selling that for like 100+ million, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
But it's slowing down slowly.
The Hithel minion and the Emmet minion, if you have both of them out, or if one person has one out and one has another out, they will run up to each other.
Yeah, they love each other. They're besties.
Isn't Hyphlodius's minion Greek for friend?
Yes, Philos.
It is so cute. It's really
And
cute.
then the Hades one is just another name for Hades.
Yeah.
Their descriptions are really nice too. And if you put the Hades minion and the Solus minion on your island, the one says, "I would be the one to sigh," and the other one actually sighs. The younger Elpis Hades is the one that sighs. Because he does that a lot, actually. He sighs a bunch.
All the time.
Oh, you want me to do what? I love him so much.
You guilt-tripping bastard.
Yeah.
But yeah, somebody who likes my writing gave him to me as a gift, so I was very happy to receive that. I'm still on the hunt for Hyplodeus, though.
That's really generous.
Indeed.
That's 5 small houses.
Yeah, but I'm never going to participate in the housing lottery because the housing system is something I gave up on a long time ago.
I would honestly take the minion too, although I'd be tempted to sell the first one while the market crashes because it'll be a minute.
The minion is too sentimental for me to do that, and it's just like it's almost like a home that can come with you on all of your adventures.
That is
so
so
true. Feels
true.
bad? Losing out of 2 bids. I was the second bid. I lost to the first bid. 2 bids!
Yeah.
For a medium.
I'm sorry.
They're going to turn it into a nightclub. Congratulations.
Oh, they already turned it into a tea house.
Oh, did they?
Well, it's still pretty close.
So I'm just going to go for a small, because there were a bunch of smalls with no bids on them when I was looking around.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that all of the previous wards, I'm sure, have been cleaned out of a few things. So I'm just going to grab a small and then work for a medium sometime in the future. So this Saturday, I believe, is the next round of lottery, the last day of the next round of lottery bidding. So I'll just just go Saturday night looking around.
I wish you luck. If anyone in chat currently owns a copy of the Lavender Beds plot that is on the river, that is the only house I have ever wanted. I do have a small, but that's the one I would move to. So feel free to let me know.
Where Kurogane Estate will happen.
But anyway, I guess we'll call it here. Thank you all for watching with us. Sarah, Neela, Ayumi, thanks for being here today, and I guess we'll catch you next week. Don't think we've decided on a topic yet. We were considering a gameplay stream. I'll leave that up to the team.
We kind of want to do Euphrosyne. I always have trouble with this, with saying the name, but we're considering another Alliance raid run with you guys.
Euphrosyne, yeah.
Euphrosyne.
We had fun with the Aglaia raid last time, and so I want to do another 24-man with you guys again. So
that'd be
a good way. And we could just like shoot fit, and it'd be able to give me a chance to kind of talk a bit more about my thoughts of 6.3's MSQ. And
I think it's a great
we'll
idea.
have it by then, so that we can get
and
like.
I figured out a workaround for data center travel, so I can visit another data center. If
Heck yeah! Yes, I think that's a great idea. If you all would be interested, we can definitely fill a party quicker than expected. So I think we should do it.
Most of us are on Primal, so certainly we'll be able to like coordinate around servers on there.
Yep.
So.
All right, let's call it here. Had fun, guys. Talk to you all soon.
And everyone.
As usual.
Thank you so much for coming out. Check your schedules for next week.
If you're checking us on YouTube or Twitch, please don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. It does help. Ring that bell. It does help.
Play that Primal footage.
Absolutely. All right. See you all.